I had never heard the term 80/20, the 80/20 rule,
Yeah,
until you had put that down as a possible topic. So why don't you take that? Why don't you explain what you mean by that?
it's a thing I made up that means nothing. So I was
It
talking
means
to,
something.
it means something. Everything means something, Pete. I was talking to a buddy of mine. We went out to lunch, a guy named Alex Navarez, who does marketing. And we were talking about the experience of living in Austin or something. And at the time, I was like, "Oh, it's so hot. I want to get out of here." And he's like, "Taylor, when I was dating people," he's like, "I had to remind myself constantly about the 80/20 rule." I said, "Well, what's that?" He goes, "Well, in my relationship, 80% of it was fantastic and I loved it and I had no complaints and I wanted it to be that way. The problem was there was 20% that I wasn't happy with. And I'd look at other people and I'd look for the same 20% and I'd go, but that 20% for them isn't a problem. So they must be 100% okay." And so when he was younger, he'd break up with the one person, go to the next person, and that 20% would in fact not be a problem, but there'd be a different 20%. And he came to realize that there's always going to be a 20%. There's no way to get away from it. And so once he accepted the 20% and focused on the 80% as a good thing, that's how he was able to stay happy in a relationship, stay committed to it. Yeah, so that's the 80/20% in a nutshell as it relates to mental health.
Hmm, that's awesome. I had um, just read something that talked about long-term marriages, and it said the perspective uh, of the partners was fundamental in how long the relationship was going to last. If you have a pet peeve with your partner, they're not doing something, and you think to yourself, if I influence their behavior, we can just change that. Like they'll get better. If they consider their problem as transient and like they can basically like, they can fix them, those relationships were weaker and they didn't last as often. However, if the perspective of the partner was accepting of whatever they found problematic, like they always leave their clothes on the couch, and they figure that that's just the way it is. That's just the way it's going to be with this partner, and they can accept the fault and live with it. They can be annoyed with it. Maybe not accepted is the right term, but you know what I mean. They basically don't expect that thing to change. Don't expect it to change. It's just part of the relationship. Those relationships were actually stronger.
One of my pillars, speaking of pillars, one of my pillars is that generally speaking, life is not about avoiding problems because that's a fool's errand. There's always going to be problems. Life is much better served if you can pick the problems you're willing to deal with. And what that looks like in practice is exactly what you talked about. Like, do I want my problem to be that I'm with this person who leaves their dirty clothes on the bathroom floor and farts at inopportune times? I don't know. But what I buy with that problem is I get my best friend to be with me and I get to share a life with this person. Do I want that to be my problem, or do I want my problem to be that I don't have dirty clothes on the bathroom floor? I don't have someone farting at inopportune times. But the problem that I'm buying, or the problem that I'm choosing, is that I don't have this person in my life. If you frame it that way, if I'm willing to pick this problem, then it's so much easier to have a realistic approach to life. I understand this is going to be a problem. I'm not surprised that it's a problem. And this problem, I think, really crucially, is not proof of failure. It's just proof of reality. Things aren't going bad or wrong. It's just this is what this thing is. I've made my peace with it.
So how does that equate to treatment of yourself? Not equate, but like relationally to yourself. It seems like what we're talking about today is the inability to accept those things.
The inability to let go of the 20.